When they met on Saturday, both Joe Biden and Xi Jinping stressed the importance of communication. Biden talked about it preventing competition from turning into conflict. Is the Chinese leadership worried about where things are heading with Donald Trump returning to the White House?
China made it very clear, and I think Beijing thinks that whomever is to be the next U.S. president, Beijing wants a cooperative, constructive, and practical relationship with the United States. Simply too much is at stake. We have $600 billion, $700 billion of trading relations. Millions of Chinese living in the United States and hundreds of thousands studying there as students. And, we're two big countries that have nuclear weapons. So I think we need a new paradigm for China-U.S. relations going forward that should be marked by being inclusive, being pragmatic, thinking more liberally and more open-mindedly towards each other.
The Philippines, it's a U.S. ally, and the government there is frustrated by how the Chinese military has been operating in the region. Where do you think this situation is headed in the South China Sea?
I think U.S. should leave this issue of South China Sea to the parties directly involved, that is Manila and Beijing, instead of interfering and siding with one side. This will only make matters worse.
Though the U.S. does have a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines, so there is an obligation there.
You have a defense treaty with Israel. That doesn't mean that you can tolerate the killing of tens of thousands of children in Gaza.
G20 leaders last night issued a joint statement that calls for an end to the war in Ukraine, but it did not condemn Russia's invasion. China has been supporting Russia throughout the war. What do you think the Chinese government is hoping to see happen in Ukraine as this war continues?
China made it very clear that we don't want war, we don't want suffering, we don't want killing of any kind, be it in Gaza, in Yemen, or in Ukraine, or in Russia. I don't think China is supporting Russia's operations against Ukraine.
China has been buying oil and gas from Russia when many other countries have not done that.
China provided humanitarian relief goods to Ukraine. But what I'm saying is that China has made multiple attempts within the UN with our global partners to call on all parties to stop the war. I mean, when the U.S. provides weaponry and warplanes and F-16 jets to Ukraine, I don't think that's helpful. That's adding fuel to the fire.
However, that is, helping a nation protect its sovereign borders, whereas Russia was the invader in this case.
Well, don't forget when NATO expanded some 5 times since the 1990s and expanded all the way to Russia's borders. What about that? Did the mainstream media even talk about that, or did the military-industrial complex, ever reflect on its worth or its merit? I mean, I think some people in Washington needed an enemy so that they can keep producing and selling their weapons. And I think wars and sufferings are bad. So it is in Gaza.
One more topic I want to talk with you about, climate change. Trump has said that he will encourage oil drilling and fracking and pull the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement once again. In the absence of U.S. leadership on climate change, will China take on more of that role internationally?
I think China has indeed been doing that. If you look at electric vehicles, for example, some 65 to 66% of the world's new electric vehicles roll off manufacturing plants in China. The lithium batteries, an important part of electric vehicles. China produces more of that than the rest of the world combined. If you're a mother in Shanghai or a father in Boston, we want the same things for our children. Clear waters and clean forests and sustainable ecosystems. Yes, China wants to be a leader in this fight. I mean, we're all in this together.